Welcome to the Fit Girl Magic podcast. If you are ready to find your inner magic, develop great habits, and a rock-steady mindset to feel confident, comfortable, and fit in your body, you are in the right place. I am Kim Barnes Jefferson, and I'll be giving you weekly doses of health, fitness, and life tips sprinkled with humor and real talk. If you're ready to be consistent without the stress of perfection, magic makers, it's time to slip into your favorite pair of PJs, grab some coffee, kick back, and listen to today's show.
Hey, Magic Maker, let's be real. In this economic environment, everything from groceries to gas feels like it's double what it used to be. It's no wonder money feels overwhelming. But here's the deal. Avoiding your finances doesn't make the stress go away. In fact, it makes it worse. Here's this crazy statistic that just blew my mind. Did you know that 61% of women would rather talk about their own death than money? Yeah, like what is going on? So I know, I get it. When eggs cost more than your Netflix subscription, it's really easy to just want to bury your head in the sand and wait for these times to pass. But avoiding finances doesn't make the stress go away. It actually makes it worse. And that's why I brought on Tess, a financial educator who gets it. She's not here to yell at you or confuse you and throw away all this kind of like Wall Street chat jargon at you. You know, who cares about diversification and strategy, right? Nope. We want to know, like, how am I going to figure out what I got for money? How am I going to keep what I got and maybe grow it a little bit? Tess is like that friend that you sit down with at Chili's and you order some queso. In fact, I actually met Tess at a restaurant with a group of friends, and she explained investment property like the most simplest terms that I've ever heard it explained. And I was like, I need this girl on the show. So in her words, this stuff doesn't have to be complicated. This conversation is about reclaiming your power with money, even if you've made some mistakes. And she will admit that she's made some mistakes and how she's been able to rebound from those mistakes. So if you feel like you're late to the game, you are not. If you feel like you've never looked at your bank statements, your investment statements, don't worry. She's got you. She's never going to make you feel like, oh girl, I can't believe you haven't done that. She will just grab you in a big hug and help you really understand why it's time to take control. Tess says money is a skill and skills can be learned. So ladies, let's frickin' go. Hey, Magic Makers, another iTunes review of the week. We have it from Deb ROBR33ANT. She says, Kim is so lively and interesting to listen to. She makes healthy living easy by giving so much good quality information that is doable. There isn't a subject she doesn't explore around mind and body. Always a great listen. Oh, that's exactly why I started the podcast. And that's exactly why I continue to do the podcast. And I'm always wide open to any of you sharing any topics that you want to hear, have me have a guest on. You know, I wrote something 3 years ago. There's about 70 different topics, and I am shockingly blowing through them all. So at any point you want to listen to something, have a guest expert, please let me know. Reach out to me on the socials. You can find it here in the show notes. And as always, thank you so much for that awesome review.
All right, Magic Makers, I'm doing something different today. And over the next probably year, I'm going to sprinkle in these experts that I have come across to talk about different areas of our life other than weight loss that I feel contribute to a lot of the stress that you might be feeling in your life. And one of the biggest stressors that everyone has is money. And so I met Tess at a dinner, and she was just basic stuff like money. Some people they talk and it's one, I'm bored. Two, is that they make it just so freaking complicated. And three, Tess was just whatever, oh, well, a couple of investments here, she was just so blasé, very matter of fact. And I'm like, oh, I like this kind of talk. So I'm bringing her to you. We're not talking complicated. You're not going to have to pull out your Google dictionary to hear what she's talking about. So Tess, welcome to the show. Thank you for having me. I'm pumped to be here.
Hey, Magic Makers, real quick before we dive in, can we talk about your metabolism for a second? If you feel like your body has been giving you the finger lately, you are not crazy and you definitely are not broken. You might have a metabolism that is tired AF. I created a fun quiz to help you figure out exactly what's going on with your metabolism and what the heck to do about it. It could be, are you eating too little? Overtraining? Maybe doing the right things and still feeling stuck? This quiz will call it out. It only takes a few minutes and you will get a custom result that is spooky spot on. So if you're ready to stop throwing spaghetti against the wall and finally figure out how to eat, train, and feel good again, go take the quiz like right frickin' now. Link is in the show notes. Let's figure out how your metabolism is holding you back and how to get out of diet jail. So back to the show.
Yeah. And like I said, we were just having like a random conversation. We're at dinner with two other friends and we're just randomly, conversations come in, come go. And I just really like that you just randomly had these like little like financial nuggets that you dropped. There was not this like you got up on your TED stage and like talked about finance. And I absolutely love that about you.
Thank you. Thank you. I always, my goal as a financial educator and a woman that owns a financial education business is to teach and talk about finance in a way that is, first of all, judgment-free, jargon-free, and actually digestible. And so a lot of times that means explaining things in super plain English, but also realizing that this is a conversation we need to be having.
Yes.
And it's very emotional and it's very psychological. And we need to support each other and have empathy while we're talking about money. So I appreciate that you said that. My goal is to be the exact opposite of a stiff in a pantsuit. Like I'm trying to be the opposite of your like Wall Street guy named Chad. Like, yeah, I want to be a friend that helps you with money.
Right. Because it's like, if I wanted to really like dive into like money, I would be watching, who's that guy who screams all the time on TV?
Dave Ramsey or, sorry. No. Kramer.
Yeah. Right.
Jim Kramer.
Like,
yeah.
I don't want to be yelled at. Like just give me the basics and tell me what to do and I'll probably do it, or I'll probably be like, I don't know what that means. But that's what I really like the best about you. And I was like, I think my people need to hear more about this. And the second thing that really like drilled it home for me was that the story you told about your mom. And I have a very similar backstory where, my parents got divorced when I was young and my mom said, Kim, you need to earn your own money. And like that's just been like the soundtrack of my life. Like you need to make your own money. And that's always been what I've done. I'm like, all right, I got to hustle. I got to grind. And that, you don't realize those like imprints like from such a young age. And so you have a very similar story as well.
Yeah, that's powerful, right? That specific moment with your mom. And I don't think I even realized how powerful this moment was until years later. Mm-hmm. It was not even when I started my business, really. I thought I started my business as a way to handle grief. I was still working full time. And I loved helping people with finances because I was able to explain it in a way that didn't make them feel stupid and create like safe spaces for my friends to be like, I know this is a dumb question, but right. And so it's always been something I've done as a unpaid side hustle for many years. Right. And it wasn't until I started my business and I really started thinking about it, like what was the real catalyst for me focusing on my money and my retirement accounts and investing, because I didn't do that right out of college. It wasn't until my mid-20s where I flipped the switch and realized I needed to pay attention to what was going on and that I was the only person that could guarantee my financial independence. And my mother, to her credit, always talked to me about building my own career, but not specifically about having my own buckets of money and agency over what was happening with my money. And that's because she wasn't comfortable with Most people aren't. Most people aren't comfortable with investing.
Our parents never, that's not a conversation parents ever really talk to their kids about, right? Like you wake up on Monday, you're like, I gotta get a checking account. What do I do with it?
Yeah. And so to come back to this story that you're referring to, so there was this one day when I was sitting down with my mother at Chili's and it was super busy. There was like kids running everywhere. And I remember it sort of like, in the movies when everything sort of fades out and you're just focused on this person, right? It was like that scene. And I remember I was so distracted I was not paying attention to anything else going on in the restaurant because I remember how sad my mother was because she was finally telling me the adult version of what had happened with my biological father, who was a picture of instability. This man was married 6 times. So lots of,
you're like, Mom, red flag.
Yeah. He wasn't married 6 times when they got married, but he was married too many times before they got married. But we'll give her a pass. She's done well since then. But yeah, so I'm talking to her and she's telling me this story about how he left her sort of in the lurch financially. He was cheating on her, absent psychologically, physically, all the things. And she's telling me the details and, now I'm old enough to hear them. But the thing that stuck with me was what she said after she told me all that. I kind of knew. I knew he wasn't a great guy. Right. But what I didn't really realize is that she had met my stepdad through a dating service. And the impetus for hiring this dating service was to find someone that she could rely on financially. And so I had known, like she had told me, I met your stepdad on a dating service, which I thought was super hilarious because I remember thinking like, so straight up like manila folders of dudes, like that's how you did it back in the 90s, right? Like there wasn't no Hinge, you weren't swiping. Yeah, she was like, yeah, pretty much. Like I got folders of people and I'm like, that's crazy. But what she said, and this wasn't the only reason she ended up marrying him, and thankfully I'm so grateful he turned out to be a great guy. He passed away a few years ago, but was a great guy for the time that they were married. But that was really a major driver for her, was to find a financially responsible man. And that's because me and my brother at the time were under 3 years old. And I remember sitting there connecting these dots and feeling so freaking uncomfortable and being like, holy crap, I can't imagine being a single mom of 2 with 2 babies under 3, trying in Massachusetts, which is an expensive state, trying to figure this all out. The mortgage on the house, the rates back at this time were like 18% interest rate on the mortgage, like crazy stuff. So anyway, I left that conversation thinking I have to do something differently because thankfully I was a saver. I had a scarcity mindset, for better or for worse, that helped me save money. So I did have some money saved, but I had just farmed it out to the first financial advisor I could find, and I was paying zero attention to it. I had no idea what it was investing in, no idea how it was growing. And the long story short is that after I started diving in and I became a woman obsessed, like I was obsessed with learning everything I could about investing. And I realized a couple things. One, that I was way overpaying in fees, like thousands of dollars in fees that I didn't even realize I was paying. I had been sold a super garbage financial product. I put $20,000 in a financial product that I could not get that money out, and it's completely useless for me, essentially, in retirement. And that I had just sort of like let this happen. So I was super ashamed. And thankfully, what all this taught me was that after I dove in and learned investing, I had this epiphany and I realized this is not that complicated. We think investing is so complicated because financial advisors in the industry likes to bombard us with terms and jargon and make it sound like this super secret thing that only finance PhDs can figure out. And that's just not true. And so that's why I have an entire business dedicated to teaching women in their 30s, 40s, and 50s how to invest, because I know 2 things. I know how terrifying it is to not be in a place where you can take care of yourself financially. Yeah. And I know that it's actually really simple. And if we can just get past the limiting beliefs that we have about money, it can change everything for us.
Yeah, it's as you say that, like, there's multiple kind of like stories that pop up, and for those who are listening, you talk about like, so now your mom's a widow, right? So like, what if you don't know where the money is? What if you don't know anything about that?
Well, and she didn't. So when my stepdad died, thankfully she's okay financially, but that was another thing. She was so stressed about the accounts. She didn't know how much money was in them. She didn't really know she didn't understand them. And so thankfully I was there to help her. But I remember thinking the whole time, like, if I hadn't have gone through what I went through in my like come to Jesus moment of like figure out your financial life, I wouldn't have really been able to help her either.
You would have been leading the blind.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's part of the reason I wanted to have it, because, I've seen people who are widows who are like, I don't know anything. Like I know we have account. Some people don't even know where the bank is. Like that's, that kind of stuff is just really scary. The second thing that you said that I thought was really interesting is that the security, right? How many women right now are maybe staying with their partner because they are nervous about money.
Yeah.
Or two, it's that maybe there's even like just they're being held hostage financially.
Yeah. I'm so glad / sad that you brought that up because so this is so I have this beginner investing program and my most popular program is a group program. So I meet people, but I don't always know them on a super deep level, but I get to know them to some degree. And so I never really know what's going on. But there have been multiple times, Kim, where people have told me later that they had left their partner because they were able to get their financial life together and they felt more confident and they felt like they could do it on their own, or that they had just gotten out of a super financially abusive relationship and that's kind of why they were learning this stuff now. And you never know that, but obviously someone's not going to lead with that. But I always we'll never have data on this because it's just impossible to capture that. But financial infidelity and financial abuse, in my anecdotal experience, is a much bigger issue.
Oh, it's huge.
But we'll just never be able to really study that because it's so emotional and so psychological. It's just like domestic abuse. We can't ever get the right numbers on that. It's the same kind of issue.
Well, it's also, the same issue with people who get scammed, right? Like you feel embarrassed. So I'm like,
exactly.
I'm not going to tell you that someone scammed me out of money because you feel like it was your fault. Meanwhile, you're like, you trusted the wrong person. Like we've all trusted the wrong person.
Yeah. And that's happening a lot too. And especially as they get more sophisticated. And there is this wonderful personal finance writer named Charlotte Knowles, and she writes for The Cut. And she is a personal finance writer, and she got scammed. And she kind of knew what was happening, but they were so sophisticated with what they were doing that I think they were threatening her niece or something. And so she got nervous and she wired money. And I'm so impressed by her that she was so she's a writer. She wrote all about it. She published it in multiple publications, which I was so happy about. But she talked about that. And she's like, there's just we feel so much shame and then we don't talk about it and then we don't learn. And that's such a shame because it doesn't matter how smart or savvy you are. If someone can dive into the thing that scares you the most and really tap into your psychology, anybody can get scammed, unfortunately.
Yeah. Exactly. So, someone who's listening and, here I am in my 40s, maybe a little later, and maybe I feel did I miss the boat? Is it too late for me to even think about having enough money to retire, or am I going to be the greeter at Walmart for the rest of my life?
100% no, it's not too late. I think that is one of the saddest limiting beliefs that holds people back because the reality is it's not too late. But every year that you wait to take control of your financial life, it gets harder. You have less time until retirement. So if you are trying to invest for retirement, you have less time for your money to compound and grow passively, which is what investing is, right? Your goal is to buy something that makes you more money over time. And so 40s is not too late. My number one demographic, the most women I work with are in their 40s. And a lot of them make huge financial strides in a couple of years. But the problem is life's going to life. And so finance is emotional and it's stressful. And a lot of times we feel shame for mistakes we've made in the past. We knew we shouldn't have bought that thing or invested with that guy, or everybody has a story of where they lost money doing something. It might be small, it might be big, but everyone has that regret. And I think unfortunately that paralyzes a lot of people. And so if you're in your 40s, the gift that you have right now is that you actually do have time to turn it around in an incredible way, and not overnight, but a few years of intentional focusing on how money comes in and out of your life, learning the basics of investing. I'm not talking about finance PhDs. I'm talking about basic concepts you can learn in the amount of time you've scrolled in social media this week. Taking small steps with your money and building knowledge and awareness, that can change your life in a couple of years. And I actually had one student. This is a perfect example. She was 40 when we met, a single mom of 2. And she had maybe 70K in student loan debts, not a lot invested, but she did have an old 401k that she had totally forgotten about. And so over the next few months, she found the 401k, she rolled it over, she set up automatic investing in this account. And again, she's a single mom of two, she's a business owner, a personal trainer. She's not making a killing, but she invested consistently over the last 3 to 4 years. And now between her 401k rollover, which was about, I think, 50 or 60 grand, and her investing, she has $100,000 invested and she's 43. And she did that in a couple of years. And she kind of started from nothing, really. Right. I mean, she had that old 401k, but I think that's a very realistic example of what can happen if somebody really focuses on this and pays attention. And now the financial piece that she has, knowing that she has that bucket that can compound and grow until retirement, even if she's gotten into bad spots since she's a single mom too, like, life happens, right? She's not able to invest as much as she wants all the time, but she knows that she's laid enough of the groundwork that she's gonna be okay no matter what. And the decrease in stress and anxiety, like that's the win there. Right? Yeah.
Well, because especially, you're like, I got to keep these kids alive, right? So that's like your number one thing, but you're also thinking to yourself that we also need a net. That it just can't be this like day-to-day paycheck to paycheck, which, we all know that the paycheck to paycheck, or maybe not quite to the next paycheck feeling. And it's like a lot of pressure on yourself. And so how does someone shift out of that like scarcity mindset that like, I'm making this number up because you guys know I don't do math. Like I'm making $1,000 a week, yet, my bills are like more than $1,000 a week, and you're telling me that I need to save. Like, how do you like kind of help your client like shift to be like, even if it's $10, something's better than nothing?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I would say is to really get clear on what's actually happening. Because most of the time when people say, I make this, but my expenses are this, when we really dive into it, that's actually not what's happening. Usually there is a disconnect between, it's like nutrition. If you don't actually like track what you eat for a few days or weeks or whatever, like to start, like you would guess, if you've never done it before, if it's your first time, you probably have no idea what you're really eating if you've never really been focusing on it, right? And it's the same with your cash flow. So I would say in that case, the first thing I do is, and this is not fun, I'm not gonna lie, this is not a good time, but the first thing is like, look at the last 3 months and see what actually happened, what came in and what went out. The reality is, if you have more going out than coming in and there's nothing you can do to change it, like it's just necessary expenses, then you do need to focus on your income. There's no magic pill for that. But for most people, if you really look at what your income is and what your expenses are, there is a way to get a little bit of a buffer between those things, but you have to be intentional about your values and how you're going to spend your money, and also prioritize saving and investing. And that has to become part of your spending plan. Yeah. So the way that I like to think about it, I don't like budgeting. Kim, I'm like you. I'm not like a huge numbers person. I don't like line by line budgeting. I think it's horrendous. I've never done that. I'm a financial educator and I'm anti-budget, like let the record show. Yeah. So what I prefer is to say, okay, let's divide your money into essentially like 3 buckets. You have the money that you need to spend, like the keep the lights on money, the rent, food, gas, that stuff. Then you have money that ideally you're using to pay off debt, invest, or save. And then the third bucket, if you have this available, is guilt-free spending. And so what happens is usually people go backwards, is they live their life throughout the month and then they feel like they don't have money left over to save and invest because it's all gone. And if you don't plan ahead, then that's what will happen. But if we look at the income and say, okay, this is the bucket of money we have. How much is going to cover the necessary expenses? How much do we need to put towards debt, saving, investing, whatever? And then what's left over for guilt-free spending? And I would say, even if you are in debt, you should still have a guilt-free spending bucket. We are here to like live our lives, right? Yep. I'm not into the extreme budgeting. It's like juice cleanses. It doesn't work. So if you plan ahead, you can plan into understanding like, okay, like this is my bucket of money that I can use for whatever I want, whatever I value most. But the rest is earmarked for other things. So that's the way that I look at it, that I think is a lot more simplified than being like $40 for gas, $100 for subscription. Like, it gets way too complex that way.
Yeah,
So I think
exactly.
if you divide it into those buckets, and I want to be clear, like, even if, let's say, you're in a place where you've paid off most of your debt and you want to start investing, even if you open an investing account, and we can talk about I know that might sound like crazy. Like, how do you do that? What do you mean open an investing account?
Right.
We can come back to that. But like, let's say you have some money you want to put into a retirement account, like an IRA, an individual retirement account for the future. You can start that process when you're still in debt, and maybe it's only $50 a month for now. But the value of starting that process of opening an account and putting some money in it every single month, it's incredibly empowering. And now you're in control and you're taking agency over your finances. So even if you're not in a place where you're like crushing it financially, you're not investing as much as you want, you start to see the path. And that's how you shift your mindset. Unfortunately, it's not. The mindset and the knowledge go hand in hand. Like, once you get clarity on your situation, that's how you start to shift your mindset. But it's really hard to just change your mindset if you don't know what's going on in the first place.
Yeah. And, you and I touched on, as you're kind of like unpacking where the hell is my money going, you and I touched on this where like, you call it bougie broke, right? We've all seen people with all the latest things, right? So
Yes.
It's like, as soon as the latest iPhone comes out, I gotta have it. As soon as the next Stanley Cup comes out, I gotta have it, right? So it's like, and all the other like things you might be influenced on the socials.
Yes. I mean, I love the term bougie broke. And I'll tell you, as a financial educator, like, most people that you see with fancy cars are probably in debt. If you take one thing from the show, fancy cars or fancy purses, most people can't afford those things. When I say most people, I mean 99% of people can't afford those things. And it's so easy to compare ourselves, and it's so easy to see influencers peddling different products and get caught up in the comparison game, or your friend has like 10 Stanleys in every color or whatever. And even that smaller stuff, right? Like, that's insidious. Like, that stuff can add up. Mm-hmm. So that's why, coming back to your question about like, what if you're making more, you're not making enough to cover your spending? Like, the first thing I always do is say, like, let's honestly look at what you're spending, because all of these companies, influencers, Amazon, they are geniuses at getting you to hit the buy button. And social media was created basically for us to compare our lives to each other, right? Like, that's like really what's happening. And it's very easy to get caught up and think like, oh, so-and-so has this like great kitchen, I wish I had that. Like, they might be in debt. And this actually happened, Kim. There were two people that I used to work with, and they both worked with me to learn how to invest and how to organize their money. And one of them commented about the other one and said, I just want to be like Amy. I'm changing the name for not anonymity. There we go. Yeah. I just want to be like Amy. She has this beautiful kitchen. Like, I'm so jealous. The girl that was saying that had $200,000 in retirement accounts and no debt. Amy had $80,000 of debt and $10K in retirement accounts and was like not in a good financial spot. So like, that's a perfect example of what we see all the time. And so that is one of the best things you can do for your wallet, is to stop giving a shit about what other people are spending their money on. Like, that's the truth.
Because like when you wrote that, I'm like, it's so true. And I was telling Tess earlier, I was like, I happen to be at the gym, and I'm like, scrolling on Instagram, and I see her post, and I start laughing because I think you were holding a Stanley Cup when you
Probably.
pointed to one, and I was laughing because I looked around the gym, and out of like 20 people that I saw, I'd say a good 15 of them had not only a Stanley Cup, but had like the thing that goes on the bottom and the straw topper. And I was like, that's a $60 cup right there.
Ridiculous. Yeah. So I have this friend who is also a financial educator, and she does these great videos, and she talks about how influencers are doing a really good job of making organization look like something that like cleans up your life, but actually you're spending so much money. Like, those videos, or you're watching somebody like take their individual yogurt packets and put it into like more packets. It's like, it's already a yogurt. Like it's in its own packet already. Like what are you talking about?
Like to have an aesthetic refrigerator. I'm like, who's in your fridge? And if you are in my fridge, we're tight. So if my fridge is a hot mess, look on in.
Oh, for sure. Like if anyone judges my unaesthetic fridge, like get out of my house. Like we're not friends.
Right. I'm like, yes, my yogurt is going to be in the container that it came in.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the crazy part. They have these like containers for like your drinks. And like, I'm a seltzer person. I have an addiction to seltzers. And I see these like, you can like match the color of your seltzer to like a container for your seltzer. It's absurd. It's absurd.
Completely. And when I see people do that, I'm like, I barely want to put the food away, like alone. Put it in something else.
Yeah, I do. I am really grateful that I have seen a lot of like, there's a term for, I can't even remember off the top of my head, like normalizing a normal house, which is like so crazy. Like when you think about that, like the trend on social media is like showing your regular house, like or your regular bedroom or whatever. Like that shouldn't be a trend. That's just like the way things are. But of course, it doesn't show like that on social media.
So the house I live in right now, the original owner gutted it to the studs and rebuilt it. And so we needed to have some work done, and we found the original plans. So my husband called the original architect. And so the original architect came over, and but I don't know if it was the first thing he said, but within the first like 20 minutes of our like meeting, he's like, I'm really glad to see that you guys live in your house. And I was like, is it a compliment? And then he like finished it. He's like, well, he's like, you know, the people who he hired him originally, he's like, you walked in and it always looked like it was photo shoot ready. And my husband would prefer to live like that, but I can't.
Yeah. It's also the amount of time. Like I'm all for like not having clutter. Like that's great, right? But there is a point in time where you have to live your life.
Right. Like, but he was so funny. He's like, glad to see like you look like you live here. And I'm like, that's amazing. Is that a half-ass compliment? So if someone here is listening and they're like, okay, she talked about IRAs, she talked about, 401ks, but she's like, where, if I'm not doing any of that, where should I begin?
It's a great question. So the first thing that I would say is that if you don't know how money comes in and out of your life, you can't strategically use your money to build wealth through investing. So one of the things that I've noticed is even if you start to learn a little bit about investing, and let's say you learn how to open a retirement account that you invest in, and you even learn how to pick investments, if you aren't living within your means and strategically spending the money that you do have, it doesn't matter how strategic your investments are, you're never going to build wealth. Right. Because the reality is the biggest indicator of building wealth in the stock market is how much you contribute consistently over a long period of time. So when you start to learn about the basics of wealth building and the stock market, what you'll learn is that no one really knows what's going to happen. No. And people that pick stocks, like when you hear that hot stock tip from like your barber, like usually that stock does not do well, right? So like the best strategies are like really simple investing, and basically like you can invest in what's called an index fund, and that's basically the variety pack of investing. It's like going to IKEA, and instead of buying like the bedroom and the lamp and the dresser and all the stuff that needs to go into your bedroom, you just are like, I'll take the IKEA like done for you bedroom, right? That has all the stuff you need. Like there are investments like that you can learn to invest in very quickly. And those tend to do the best because they're not fancy. They're just trying to invest in a bunch of different stocks all at once. Right. And so knowing that, where we really need to be focusing our time is making sure that we're clear on where our money is going and what our goals are. And so even before, you can do this in one of two ways, I'd say, but even before you start to look at your cash flow, because it will be helpful to have this context in mind when you do it, is to start to really understand, what do you want your money to do for you? Do you want it to buy you freedom in the future? Do you want it to make sure that you don't have to have a side hustle at 70? Like what do you want your money to do? Do you want to have money so that you can go on your like bucket list trip in 10 years, right? So figure out like what matters to you. I bet it's not a new fancy kitchen. Maybe if you're a cook, it is, but get really clear on like what your priorities are first. And then you can look at how you're spending your money and think about, is the 10 different colored Stanley Cups, is that helping me get to my goal of my bucket list trip, right? And then you can be honest with yourself and start to compare it. So I think that getting really clear on your goals and values so that you can look at how money comes in and out of your life and make a plan to be intentional with how you spend your money is really like the first step before you even get into investing. And you know what's interesting, Kim, is most people think investing is the hard part. I can teach people how to invest. I do it all the time in my program. I can teach you the basics of opening an account and choosing simple investments in like a couple hours. That's not rocket science. We think it's hard because the media makes it sound really hard because they talk about the stock market going up and down and left and right, and they love to sell negative news. So they make it sound real like the news benefits from negative clickbaity stock market news. Yeah.
Stock market went down 500 points, news at 11. Right? And so
exactly. Like, can I tell you something? Like, the stock market probably went back up 500 points like the next day, right? You just don't hear that part of the news.
Right.
So anyway, so the point being, like, you'll have to take my word for it because we're not going to go deep dive into like the basics of investing. But that part is if you're listening to this, you're totally capable of learning that. The harder part is taking the honest look at how money comes in and out of your life. And for some people, like, it might be like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It might be like you need to make more money, or your expenses are too high and you need to do something different.
Yeah. And it was, and it's like, if we, bring it back to like weight loss, right? So it's like, I could be eating the best foods. I could be eating like, all the right foods, but if I'm eating too much of the right food, it's still too much. So it's like, maybe you aren't buying the frivolous things, but maybe it's like, your apartment's just a little bit too expensive, or maybe your car, like maybe your car is just a little too expensive. So it's like making those subtle little tweaks might be able to get you to where you want to go.
Yeah, and I think, and I'd ask you because you're the expert when it comes to the nutrition side, but like the same thing, the thing with money too is like, you don't need to spending hours trying to cancel your like $12 subscription. Like, that's not going to help you. Not buying the lattes. If you really like lattes, like, buy the damn latte.
Right.
It's the big stuff that you do over and over. Like if your rent is $4,000 and you make $6,000, like, that's not going to work.
Right.
And so that's the kind of like, you can make those bigger decisions that really, like the car and the house, those two things. Like, people buy new cars all the time, and the average new car price right now is $750 a month. That's a lot of money.
Right. Like, that was more than my rent when I first moved out of my house.
Yeah. So like, that's the big stuff that, like, do you want to have financial flexibility to invest and spend more time going out with your friends? Then get a beater. Right. Or I mean, not too much of a beater. Like, you don't have to break down and spend much money on it. But like, there's a balance, right? Like, and so I think that's those big things. Like, people, there's a great, I'm going to say it wrong, but there's a great finance creator. His name's Ramit Sethi. He's great. He has a book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Yeah, I recommend everyone read it. He's great. But he says people spend too much time on like $3 decisions and not enough on like $30,000 decisions, because you're not just spending $750 on the car. You're spending $750 on the car for years on end and paying interest, right? Like, it's a huge expense. And so those are the things that really are high value to pay attention to.
Right. And it's funny because it's like everyone, I can't remember the quotes. It's going to be butchered, but it's going to come out. How people like step over dollars to chase pennies, right? So it's like,
oh, I like that.
So it's like, you'll step over, you're like, but I need to drive whatever the car is that you need to drive, but you'll talk about giving up your latte, where like, it's like, what's $5 compared to $750?
Yeah. And I think the other point that we haven't talked about yet that is high value is like, let's say you're a business owner and you know that if you work on something, you get like this ROI. If you have that knowledge, pay someone to like clean your house or like shovel the driveway or whatever, right? Like, get your time back so you can use your time more wisely to make more money. Like, those are the kinds of like strategic decisions that when you reframe money as a tool, to make you more money, then you can say, okay, I could spend an hour shoveling the driveway, or I could pay these kids down the street like $60 to shovel it and spend an hour on a sales call and probably make 500 or whatever it is, right? Like you get the gist, but it's that kind of thinking. And that comes with when you get clear on your goals and you start to really understand how money comes in and out of your life and where you want to get to. Even if you don't know exactly how to get to it, you'll figure it out. The tactical piece is not the hard part. It's the making the decision that you want to do something different with your money, realizing that you're not bad at money. Money is a skill. And I don't care if you're like bad at math. There's calculators for everything. That's not a good excuse anymore. Right. Like you're not bad at money. You just haven't developed the skills. It's just like anything else.
But I mean, as a society, we don't talk about money, right? You don't, like, your parents don't sit down and show you like their bank account and say, until like you have to pay your first light bill, you have no idea. Like light is magic.
Yeah.
Like, lights and heat are just all magic. It just all works.
Yeah. Yeah, there was this crazy stat from I think it was a 2022 Merrill Lynch study. And it said that 61% of women would rather discuss their own death than talk about money. And I was like, yep, I believe it.
No, like we don't talk about how bills are paid. Like we believe in magic. I know I did. And then, you get your first electric bill and you're like, damn. That's like, okay. That's how the light stays on. So it's, most people now are thinking retirement. And I remember my very first company. I'm 22 and dumb as a rock. And if you did not put money in your 401k, you had to sit down with the CEO.
That's amazing.
And so like, he was it was a small company and he was like a super sweet guy. So like, no one wanted to do it. So everyone invested in their 401k.
But that's amazing that he did that, because most people don't do that today. Like I've only heard of one CEO like actively trying to get people to understand their 401k. That's amazing.
Right. And so, the HR person this time, she goes, everyone just puts in 2%. She's like, and that if you don't put in at least 2%, he won't talk to you. and so like, that's why I put in my 401k. And then, that was before like you had to watch a video. Like you had to literally go and sit and watch the person like show you the time value of money, blah, blah. So now if someone didn't have, David Cease as their CEO, what would I think about doing for retirement right now? Like, is there like a simple way for me to figure out how much money I need to like, my number, or is that a thing?
Yeah. So shout out to David, first of all, great guy. Second of all, yes. So there is a way to figure out your retirement number. It's called the financial independence number. That's what most people say it's called. And it's actually pretty simple. And I have a calculator for this, so we can put it in the show note. The calculator for what I'm about to share, we'll put it in the show notes along with a step-by-step video. So if you want to figure out how much money you need to retire, it'll be in the show notes. Your, journey to financial independence is what the link is called. And so there is a rule based on a ton of data over decades and decades that basically says, with the amount of money you retire with, you can withdraw roughly 4% of that money without running out. So if you have $1 million in retirement, you can withdraw, let's say you have, let me just do this math quickly. Yeah, okay. So if you have $1 million when you retire, this data shows that if you withdraw 4% of that, so $40,000 a year, and that doesn't include Social Security, that based on the historical return of the stock market, you won't run out of money. You'll be able to like live out your life without running out of money. That's the basic rule of this financial independence number. Mm-hmm. And so like, this is when people start to panic and they're like, I don't know if I'm going to have $1 million in retirement and I can't live off $40,000 a year, right? If that's the case, like, this is your moment to start to figure this out, because $1 million seems really far away, especially if you've never looked at a compound interest calculator, until you start realizing the power of consistently investing over time. And so once you figure out this number and the journey to financial independence, the free calculator and the video there, the next step is you can figure out roughly how much money you need to be investing to reach that number. And a lot of times, especially if you're in your 40s, it's less than you think because you still actually have 20 years until you need to retire. So your 40s for me is like game time. It's not too late. You're not screwed, but you will be if you don't start now, or it's going to get way harder. So like give yourself grace if you're in your 40s, but like this is your time. This is the start the car moment.
Right. And then also, I can't remember the age, but I think it's in your 50s that they allow you to kind of do like a little extra.
Yeah. Yeah. So
double dip, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. So once you're over 50, so the contribution limits for your 401k and IRA are a certain amount. At the time that we're having this conversation, you can contribute up to $23,500 to your 401k and reduce that amount from your taxes, by the way. So another thing to remember while we're talking about all this is investing is really important for retirement, but it's also a great way to save on taxes. And I don't think we frame it that way because people are looking for like random tax savings. They're like, oh, I'm going to like write off this like coffee or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you could invest in retirement accounts and save a lot more on taxes. So your 401k helps you save on taxes. IRAs help you save on taxes. And so those are both, the best place to start to invest for retirement for sure.
Now, some people feel guilty about spending money on themselves. And so maybe the guilt about, I'm putting money to the side for investment where, it could go go towards dance lessons or hockey or, just the guilt of like not, using it for actual enjoyment.
Yes, this is super common, the mom guilt of not having enough for your kids, especially because that things have gotten harder, right? I think most moms are in this place where they feel like they should have already invested more for their kids. And I wish I could round all moms up that feel this way and be like, there's millions of us and you're going to be okay. Because here's the thing. We talk a lot about generational wealth, which I think is an incredibly important concept. But generational knowledge is really powerful. And so if you are in a place where you're listening to this and you want to start paying attention to your finances and building wealth, but you're also feeling guilty that you're not investing for your kids, here's what I'll tell you. Number one, you need to put your life mask on before assisting others. Your kids have time to prepare themselves for retirement. And the amazing thing is, if you figure out how to do this for yourself now, not only are you going to be able to teach them, but then they're not going to have to take care of you in retirement, right? Like you'll be able to protect yourself. So I think that it's a little bit backwards in that I'm always talking to women that are like, I'm investing for my kids. I don't really know what's happening. It's not strategic. Like it's just a random amount for their kids and sometimes at the expense of their own retirement. And compound interest is an incredibly powerful tool. And the good news is that for your kids, if you teach them the basics of investing $100 a month, in super simple stuff, if you learn that for yourself and you pass that on to them and you help them build a healthy financial mindset, they're going to be far wealthier than any amount of money you can save for them. And so I think that is really important and something that is a way to empower yourself. And the cool thing is too, like once you start focusing on your own investing and you get clear on that, you can still invest for your kids. Maybe it's a smaller amount and you can still involve them in the process. And that's a greater gift than just giving them money and them not really understanding like how that happened.
Right. I remember this is probably like 10 or 15 years ago, this woman that I was friendly with, she said, she's like, we don't really save for our kids' college. She goes, we're saving for our retirement. And she's like, because, our kids can always get loans, our kids can always get grants. And she's like, and whatever money we have left over when the time college comes, we will, happily give them money, but we're not actively saving. And so many people are like, clutching their pearls because she made that statement, like, pretty much, I don't give a fuck about my kids. It's how people took it. And for a financial person, and just hearing what you just said, it makes sense that I'm making sure that you're not, I don't have to live with you as a parent because I have no money.
Yeah, I applaud that woman. Like, I think that makes total sense, especially because that mindset about making sure that you're financially okay, because if you're not financially okay, then your family's going to have to manage you, right? They're going to have to help you and stuff. So I think that messaging makes total sense. And it's true. Like if your kids get some loan, and now student loans is a whole other thing. Yes, there's a lot of predatory stuff there. But if your kids learn how to, they go to a school that's like reasonable cost and they get like a reasonable amount of loans, and you help them learn how to pay those off and like invest $100 a month of their pizza delivery money or whatever, like that's all it takes. Like that's what we call next door millionaires, right? Like people that just started making good financial decisions early and did it for a long period of time. And a lot of those people are, Millionaire Next Door. That's what it's called. There's a book on this, right? And it like interviews all these people that never made more than 30 grand a year, but they were just didn't really get into debt. They consistently invested, and here they are.
They were just smarter with what they did with their money
Earlier on. Yeah.
But it was, I remember like so many people, she would say that and they'd be like, oh my God, like, I can't believe you're not sending your kids to college. She goes, I didn't say that. I
love that she said that. That's
like,
so powerful.
I am just not the person writing the check.
Yeah.
She's like, I'll write a piece of the check, but I'm not going to be the scholarship fund. Her name was Andrea.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be the Andrea Scholarship Fund.
Yeah.
So now as people are sitting here, like listening to this and, like that 4%, like that was just like pretty amazing. Like, cause most people think like for retirement that I need squillions, right? You're just like, I need squillions of dollars in order to retire and not eat cat food. I mean, that's my goal. Like my financial guy is like, I'm like, George, I'm like, all I want to do is not eat cat food. I just like, that's all I want.
I have had multiple students say that to me this year, and I need to create some content around
Do it. There has to be a meme out there of like someone eating cat food.
Yeah, somebody is sharing this with everybody because this comes up a lot.
I don't really know. I'm sure like, like your parents said things to you when you were a kid and like it just kind of like all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I'm becoming my mom. Like that's probably something my mom said to me. So right now, I know you've helped hundreds of women through this. And I know someone's listening here and saying, you know what, she's kind of making some good points here. Like what's one success story that like still gives you goosebumps?
So, man, there's a lot. I think one of my favorites is this woman came to me that had literally nothing. She had never started investing. And she was in her late 30s. I think she was like 39 at the time. And she's a really like bubbly person. And she was like, I want to travel. I want to buy my mom an RV. I want to buy my own house. I want to start investing in real estate. And I know this all sounds ridiculous, but this is what I want. And because I have this intake form. So what do you do? I have my beginner investing program. And when you join, I always ask like, what are your goals? And what's holding you back, like just to get some data on everybody that's coming in. And so she had a lot of stuff she wanted to do, a lot of expensive stuff she wanted to do, and like no money. Most of the people that I work with have some retirement accounts and maybe a little bit of debt, but don't really know what's going on with their investing at all, right? She really didn't have anything. And so we started working together, and I didn't really hear much from her. She was kind of quiet. And then maybe like 3 months after, she sent me a text with a list of things that she had done. And she was like, hey, I just wanted to thank you. And I really appreciate it. Like, here's what your course helped me did. And she was like, I fully funded my emergency fund. I opened up a high yield savings account. I paid off $10,000 of debt. I opened a Roth IRA. I chose my own investments. I'm autopilot investing into those. And my goal is to buy a house in a few years. And I was like, okay, that's awesome. Like amazing progress. And by the way, everything I just listed doesn't take a lot of time. So I wasn't actually surprised that she did all that stuff, but she did do it.
But she took action.
But she took action, right? And I was like, that's awesome. And then maybe like a year and a half later, she sent me another text and she sent me a screenshot of that account that she opened, and there were $45,000 in it. So she went from $0 and $10,000 in debt to $45,000 in this account. And then maybe another year later, so literally just last week, she sent me a note and she's like, yep, I really tried to get more money. I got a promotion. She made more money. And then she just put a down payment on her house, her first house. So that, like, I think that's such a good story because it's not like crazy,
Right.
but it's just, that's like how it happens. Like this was over like a 3-ish year period where she
Right.
went from 0 to like a 70, 80K net worth and like able to buy an affordable home and start to like save for her. Like she's doing all the things. Like she is 100% gonna buy the house and the RV for her mom. Like no doubt. Like for sure. She's on track, right? And she also made some big decisions. Like I think she actually moved from a more expensive place and saved like $1,000 on her rent. And that was like a huge move, right? That helped her like really accelerate her wealth building. So it depends on how much you want to prioritize it. Like if you really want to make moves, you can make some decisions like that. It can change your life. But I thought that was really cool because like that's realistic. Like three to 4 years. I like to say this, like any financial influencer, anyone you see online that's selling you snake oil or saying things like, this is a scam, buy this is the only way to go. Like any like absolutes or anything that's overnight, like that's all snake oil.
Right.
But like run very fast. But like 3 years, like you can change your life for sure.
And I like stories like that because I'm with you. Like I, especially in the weight loss, lose 30 pounds in 3 minutes. And I was like, girl, well, you cutting off a body part? Like, I mean, you look right through it. Yes. Where, especially for finance, I'm like, okay, what's the catch? Like, I'm just always like, there's another shoe to drop. Where for 3 years, it's like, one, she's like, these are my goals, right? So that was like, I think most people lose track of it because we don't sit down and say, these are my goals. And then two, she's like, okay, she got real. She's like, you know what? Do I need to live in this apartment?
Yeah.
No. Could I take on a roommate? Like, so she got like creative with like, where are ways that she can start to like find the money?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it was just a step-by-step process. And that's the thing, like with finance can feel really overwhelming, but if you take it step by step and you really map out your goals, like goal number 1, if you don't have an emergency fund to cover like 2-3 months of your living expenses, that's your goal. That's your homework. Done that? Cool. Do you have debt? Like, and that's like when I walk people through in my program, because it's like, you can totally Google all this stuff yourself. I tell people this all the time. Like you can YouTube and Google like all the information you need, but most of us have kids and full-time jobs and life. And so the value of investing in somebody, just like the value of somebody investing in you that has so much knowledge that can really help someone make quick strides in their health. Like, do you want to like dawdle for a few years or do you want to be healthy like much sooner with somebody to guide you and help you along? Like that is worth gold. And that's the same thing with financial education.
Right. And if you think about financial education, and I was just literally on a coaching call right before this, was that the woman's like, oh my God, there's so much information. I'm like, and she's like, I'm trying to do it all. And like for you or me, it's like, okay, let's see where you want to go. And then we can kind of like layer the steps for you. So you don't feel like you're over here and then over there. And then you're like feeling like you're not even gaining any ground.
Exactly. Like having somebody to help you like map out the next steps you need to take, then it's not hard. Then it's just the checklist, right?
Right. It's going through the checklist and just having the patience to like see the plan through.
Yeah, that's true. And especially with money and health as well, for sure.
Right. And, the stock market's going to stock market. And, sometimes we have those like really like crazy runs and you're like, my money's going crazy. And then sometimes you're like, oh, shit. Like, yeah. But, I think every financial person who's been in the game for a long time, like that's the history of the stock market. Like, it has ups and downs, but if you keep it in long enough, you're always going to find yourself in the up.
Well said. And that's part of the education too, right? Like once you understand, again, not an economics degree, but just like a little bit about how the stock market works, then when you read all the news or when the stock market does like go down significantly, you can be like, okay, this happens. It happens every 3 to 4 years. The stock market goes down like pretty significantly. And then what happens after that? It returns to record highs. And it's been doing that for over 100 years through wars and geopolitical weirdness and dot-com bubbles and subprime mortgage crises and all the things. After every single one, the stock market has returned to record highs.
Right. So now, where can people find you on the socials?
The best place where I post the most is on Instagram at Wealth with Tess. And then always in my bio, I have free resources. So if you go to my website, I have tons of free like mini courses. So if you want to figure out your 401k. If you want to figure out that financial independence number, we'll drop that one in the show notes. That's honestly, if you really want to start figuring out what you need for retirement, that's the best one. So the Journey to Financial Independence link that we'll drop in the show notes, that's the best place to start. But definitely also follow at Wealth with Tess on Instagram.
And I ask everyone, what's one thing that makes you feel magical?
Gardening.
Oh.
So I'm not good at it, just to be clear. But I like, to be really honest, like I am not great at gardening, but it makes me feel magical because I don't think there's anything cooler than like planting your own food, like your own whole food, and having it grow and eating it. And it's like so fresh. And it's just like this miracle that you can do that. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm like YouTubing, like, what do I do with this cucumber plant? It's like gone crazy. Like I'm still very much in the learning phase. Last year I had like a pumpkin patch and I had like 4 pumpkins in my garden. And yeah, honestly, like I never thought I'd be like a gardening kind of person. Like I was a jock athlete, listened to like heavy metal, like then now I'm like in the garden, like frolicking around. So things have changed, but I just think it's so cool that you can plant. If you can, I mean, just like anything else in life, you like stick at it, you plant something and you water it and sun, and it can grow. Like I just think it's amazing. It's so cool to watch. So yeah, that's probably it.
It's funny. I've over 200 episodes, and I ask everyone, and I have yet to hear a repeat. Like, and I get like the most like all over the place responses. So it always just blows my mind what I hear.
Yeah, I know. I think my brain went in 17 directions when you said that, because I think like life is I'm always like, oh my God, look at the sunset. Like, I've gotten into after years of being depressed, now like everything's amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
So now it's a little bit different, and I'm constantly overstimulated by like the beauty. But yeah, I think just like nature is amazing and what it can do, and like grow your food. Like I just think it's so cool.
And I'm a sucker for a good sunset. Like,
yeah, for sure.
All right, Magic Makers. I hope that this has like enlightened you about money, that it's not scary, that even if you've never saved a dime, you can start right now, that you can like learn where the money is and not feel like you are being held financially hostage by anyone, including yourself. And so definitely follow Tess on Instagram, hop into one of her courses, check out her free resources, because trust me, when you understand money, you understand a lot about your life, and maybe that's going to minimize some of the stress that you are feeling. So I will talk to you guys next week. And if there's anything you heard on the show, feel free to screenshot this and tag myself and Tess on the gram, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for listening to the Fit Girl Magic podcast. If you've made it this far, yay. I'm thinking you enjoyed the show. Let's continue the conversation on Instagram. You can find me at Kim Jefferson Coach. In order for me to keep sharing this message, do me a favor and leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. While you're there, don't forget to subscribe so that you won't miss an episode. New episodes are available every Wednesday. The Fit Girl Magic podcast is intended to provide you with tips, tools, and strategies that will help you make better decisions about your health. I really appreciate your feedback and your support. Thank you so much.